Hi, welcome to Wistune Starter Series Cinema 4D. Cinema 4D is a very potential 3D application. It's used by designers and VFX artists around the world because of its capability to handle very complex motion graphics in 3D. So let's get started with this. And when you open Cinema 4D, this is the interface that you will get. So you have to understand that there are three main sections of Cinema 4D in the navigation. So you can see the object move tools here. So this is how you basically navigate around or move your objects around. Here is the creation and modification stack. Here is the rendering part of it. So you can basically see these three sets of icons here, which basically controls your entire workflow with Cinema 4D. Now let's take a deeper look at the interface. You can see a set of tools in here. These are the edit object tools. So you'll be able to edit a 3D object using these set of tools. On top, you will see these three sections that we spoke about earlier. You can see your object window where all the objects that you're going to add in the scene will show up right here. And the attributes of every object that you're selecting will show up in here. You can also see the timeline where you will be using this to animate a 3D object. So let's get started here. This is your workspace, and you can see this is actually appearing in perspective, which means that you are seeing it as a human would actually see it. Now you can always click on this window button to bring all the views here. So these are other orthographic views like viewing an object from the top, right, or front. So let's get started with creating an object. So you can actually do all of these from the top menu here, but all the shortcuts are actually here. So it's pretty, important that you get familiarized with what these tools do. And in case if you are not able to find a tool, you can press Shift C on your keyboard and you can enter your command. So whatever icon that you see here, which has an arrow down below, means that it's an icon set, which will have multiple options here. So I can click on this and create an object. You can also go here to create all the objects which you have in here and choose a sphere. So we can see a sphere has appeared right here. It looks a little odd with all these rough edges and all that, which is perfectly okay. You can see in your object panel right now that we have created a sphere. So sphere is going to show up right here. When you click on that sphere, you can see the radius of it, the segments, and the type of this object. You can also see there are different tabs which controls the material, the coordination, and several other object parameters in that. Why is the sphere looking so choppy? It is because the segments on it is just very low. So currently we are not able to see these segments here. To do that, we can actually go to the display option right here and say that we want to see the lines, Gouraud shading lines, and you can see the number of segments which are right here. So if I come here and if I change the number of segments to, let's say, 30, the sphere is going to get better in its definition because we are increasing the number of segments. So let's take a look at this toolbar that we spoke about. So this section controls the movement and basic attributes of this sphere. So if I select the move tool, I can basically move the sphere in any axis that I want, the three axes that I want. There is the rotate, and you can see the gizmo changing, and you can use this to rotate your sphere. You can also scale this. You can use your mouse scroll wheel to zoom out and zoom in. You can hold Alt on your keyboard and move your mouse to see or orbit the camera around this. You can also hold your middle mouse while clicking Alt to move around the scene. So now that we have our basic information here regarding this, I'll show you how we work with edit objects. So if you go here, you can convert this object into an editable object. So it is just like rasterizing a layer in Photoshop. So the moment you make it editable, all the parametric configurations are going to go away. So when you click on it, it's gone. So it is now an editable object. So how can you edit a 3D object? There are three ways to edit it. One is by using these vertices. So these are basically points in the mesh. You have edges, so you can select any edge and modify it. There are polygons also, which you can select and modify an object with. So you can select a point in the 3D and you can move that, only those points, to basically modify an object. So this is how you edit an object. Let's come back to it later in a later video. So before we move forward, we need to understand a 3D production pipeline very briefly so that we can follow that to understand the UI and the flow of Cinema 4D. So it starts with modeling. You are going to model a 3D object. You will be texturing that object. You will be applying materials onto it. You will be lighting the scene. So you'll be adding additional digital lights to light up the scene. And you will be animating the scene. You will create an animation, a 3D animation of the scene. And finally, you will be rendering it. You will create an output out of it. So we're going to go through these steps quickly to understand and give you an overview of the interface of Cinema 4D. So we have the sphere right here. Let's create another object. So what we are going to do is we want to create a floor in here. So let's go to the create panel again and click on a plane. So we have a plane right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the scale and I will scale this up really here. So I'm going to just do that. Scaling it up. The plane is really big and it covers the entire scene right now, which is good. So then I'm going to go to the sphere and I will move it so that it sits on the plane. So if you come back to the fore, you can see that the plane is right here. The sphere is sort of going through it. I'm going to select the move tool again on the sphere and move it onto the top of this so that it sits on the plane. Let's come back to this view. So I'm going to click on this window. So we are in that view right now. So basically we modeled our scene. We have a floor and we have a ball on there. So what we are going to do right now is going to apply materials on it, right? So let's go to the create panel right here. This is the material panel, and you can click on the plus sign to create a material. We have a material right here, and now that we have that material selected, you can see all the parameters of that material. You can simply drag and drop it to an object to apply it. And then you can go here and modify all the parameters. You can change the color if you want to. You can see that it's updating here at night time. So if you go to the texture right here and load an image, I'll be able to apply an image on my desktop to this model. So we have that texture coming up on this model. Yeah, so that's something that we have here. There are so many parameters that you can play around with in your materials and map editor. We will need to add a material for the floor as well. So create our second map. Then just double click to open this. You can see this a little clearly. And in the color map is where we are going to add our texture. So we have a floor texture. Open that up. And we have the floor texture right here. You can drag and drop it to the fore right here. There are some quick options where you can edit the material. So you can see that the material is selected. It has the tiles repetition. So you can change the number of this. So I'm going to change this to 10 and 10. So you can see it is now a tile format. This actually looks pretty good. Now we have the materials of the scene. We need to add some lights onto the scene. Without the light, it looks pretty flat. So when you go to the rendering view, we talked about this set of icons. So this will give you a quick preview of the scene. So just click on that and create a render of it. It looks pretty bad because it doesn't have any lights or shadows or anything like that, because we haven't added anything. So we're going to add some basic lights. You have this light icon right here, and you can click to add any lights here. So right now you have added the light, and you can move the light around to control how you are basically, where the light is coming from, how it is going to react with your scene. So I have this right now. And let's take a quick render right now. Okay, there is a light, but there are no shadows, right? That's because when you select the light, there are some parameters that you have to adjust right here, and the shadow says none. So I want to change that to a shadow map. So right now, there will be a shadow in your render. You can see that there is an interesting shadow which actually comes there, which is good. We have a light also right now, so our lighting is done. There is again a lot of parameters that we need to understand, but in this video we're going to keep it very short and sweet, right? So we have the lighting working there. The next thing, we are going to move on to the animation part of it, right? So you can see there is a timeline right here, and Cinema 4D is a keyframe animation tool, which means that you can create 2 keyframes, and the computer will automatically calculate what is happening in between those 2 frames. I'm going to select the sphere, move it here. It is sitting there. So what we want to do is that when the animation is starting, the ball should be here, and when it is playing, after a while, it should sort of come here. So the first thing that we have to do is to create our first keyframes, and click on the record active object. So I just made a keyframe right here. I'm going to move it. So I'm going to select the frames here. So at 50th frame, the ball should be here. and I'm going to create a keyframe here. So now if you just play it, click on the play, you can see that it's moving, right? But in the real world, the ball is not going to move like this. It will rotate while it is moving. So we're going to create that rotation. It's pretty simple. So we are going to create this. We will create an auto key button right here. So it'll automatically create the key. And we will move on to the 50th frame. And I'll take the rotate key, and in this direction, I'll make a rotation, a complete rotation like this. So I created the rotation. Now if you just go back and hit play, the ball will be coming like that, right? So it's not perfect, definitely. I'm just going to use this to show you the entire pipeline and how this works. So it is rotating right now. And it's very easy if you feel like the speed is going to be very high. So you can just click this keyframe, drag it out so that it slows down the whole thing. It looks much better right now. So we have created the animation. The last part is to render this out. We have to create a render of the movie. So to do that, you can actually go to the render settings in here. You will get this window. So in your output tab, you just have to mention what is the resolution that you want this to be out. So right now it's saying 1280720. You can also select a couple of presets from here. So just because it's an example, I'm going to go with the lowest format which is available here. And the frame range, we need it from the frame number 0 to 75. So let's click on that. We have it, and we want it to be saved. So I'm going to go to save. I will locate our file. Let's save it to desktop. Change the format to MP4. So we want to be exporting this as a video. Now we have given all the settings. We are going to use the second button right here, which says render to picture. So this is just a render preview. It will just give you a preview of the frame, and this will let you do all the settings here, and this will make the final output. So before we render, just take a quick look at how it looks. Okay, it looks good. And we are going to click on this view. So it starts creating a render. So let's click yes. You can see the frames are being processed. 75, the rendering is done. And we will have the rendered file right here playing in our system. There are lots of options that we will be playing around with in Cinema 4D, but this will give you a head start. We are going to see you with another video soon. Thank you.